There are tons of different ways for you to generate leads as a real estate agent, but everybody in the business seems to be lying about the best ways to do it. And the reality is there's not one correct way to do this. Now, if you're watching one person's content or another person's or somebody's, everybody is likely telling you what they did or the services they sell and why that particular thing is the best. So in this video, what I'm going to do is break down all the different lead generation that I've seen agents do, I've personally done myself, and I'm going to break this down into a few different categories. I'm going to break it down on sweat equity versus check equity, and I'll explain what that means. And I'm also going to talk about these on high leverage versus low leverage activities or lead generation sources. Now, at the end of the video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down all these different sources, from sources that are good for beginners, sources that are more for that middle ground, and for advanced as well too. So by the end of the video, you should be able to have a plan not only for what you could do now in the business, but what you could do in the future. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And the first thing that I want to do is explain the difference between sweat equity and check equity. Now, this might sound complicated, but it's incredibly simple. It is simply that sweat equity means you are going to physically go out and do work in order to get equity in it. I mean, you get something out of it, but it means you have to actually go out and do the work. Check equity is exactly what it sounds. You are going to be spending money in order to generate leads. Now, there are lead sources that do require both. Those are some of the highest return on investments that you could possibly do, but it's also hard because it requires both sweat equity and check. So we'll get to that as well too. So let's go ahead and break down the different lead sources into the three different categories. I've got my iPad here, so I'm going to write this out for you so that we can stay on the same page. I'm super visual, and if you're watching a YouTube video, you probably are as well too. So I'm going to break these down into sweat, check, which I'm just going to write with money, and then I'm going to write both, and I'm going to keep this one small so we can put most of our efforts in the middle here. Now, I'm going to kind of rank these in order of beginner, intermediate, and advanced as well too, but I'm going to go into way more detail about that in the future. So number one is for sweat equity. I can't think of anything more sweat equity than door knocking. Now, door knocking is something that absolutely works for all kinds of real estate agents. However, it takes literally a lot of work. It's going to be hard work. You're going to be knocking on doors. You're going to get a lot of rejection. However, you're going to be able to get face-to-face in front of homeowners, which is one of the hardest things to do in this business. So that is why I have door knocking as the first thing. Mind you, these aren't in really any particular order, at least not really yet. Now, the next thing you can do that's also sweat equity is cold calling. Now, cold calling is a little bit different of an animal versus door knocking. I do not break down all cold calling into one different thing. I actually break it down into several. So you have circle prospecting, which is where you are calling a general geographic area. So maybe you pick a house that just recently listed in an area that you'd like to do business in, and you're going to call around that neighborhood, and that's going to help you. You're going to have a reason for calling because of that listing, right? You can call and say, hey, just listed, in escrow, just sold, and then maybe there's buyers available for it as well too, right? So you have circle prospecting. Now, expired listings, in my opinion, are absolutely not for new agents. This is something that takes a lot of skill in order to be good at. I would say almost the same for sale by owners as well too. Now, the last thing I'll put on here for for cold calling are NOO, which stands for non-owner occupied, meaning you're calling investors. So this is what I would wrap up for our sweat equity. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is my personal favorite, which is open houses. This is probably the easiest thing for any agent to do, generate tons of business, and it is something that is totally free and doesn't take nearly as much hard work as cold calling and door knocking does. However, there's obviously more competition with that. Now, everybody, I don't care who you are, what you say, you have some sort of sphere of influence. You have neighbors, you have things you like to do outside of work. Those things all intertwine into your sphere of influence or circle of influence, whatever you want to say. These are the people that you already know, like, and trust. And this is something that is incredibly powerful, and we'll get to this more later. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is content. This is definitely sweat equity because it's going to actually take you some work in order to build this thing up. Now, the last thing I want to mention on here are professional relationships. Now, when I say this, think divorce attorneys, whatever, senior facilities, stuff like this. These are people who are like business to business relationships where they can refer you business, you can refer them business, and you kind of have a relationship that goes back and forth. So these are things. Now, there's definitely more than this, but this is what I feel is a solid list of things that are sweat equity, meaning you're going to have to go out and do work. All right, now the next thing we're going to talk about is check equity. Now, the first one that's on here, this is going to be your Zillows, your Realtor.com. These are going to be your paying for leads. Now, there are referral programs with a lot of these different vendors, especially nowadays. Most of them will put you on any referral model. Now, if you want my personal opinion, sign up for all of them. Pray to God you get some leads for them and work the actual relationships. But I'm specifically talking about you paying and buying leads. This is what you do with Realtor, Premier Agent, and there's a million other websites that do this as well too. Now, the next thing that I would list on here are mailing campaigns. I'm just going to put mail. So direct mail. This could be all kinds of different things, but this isn't farming necessarily, but this is saying maybe it just listed, maybe it just sold, something like that. Obviously, this costs money. Anytime you put something in a mailbox, it's going to cost money. Now, the next thing I'm going to put on here is Google PPC/Facebook. Now, these are the homes for sale type ads, right? So you're not buying leads like you would with Zillow or Realtor.com. You are paying advertising for people to come to your website. A certain percentage of those people are going to opt in, and there you go. You have their information. They've given you permission to contact them, and now you have a lead, right? So this would be your Google pay-per-click, your Facebook, your CRM probably does this for you. Now, the next thing I'm going to put on here is I'm just going to call it your offer. Now, this can be on Meta. This can be on Google. This can be on YouTube. Right? What I mean by your offer is, let's say you're running a campaign for a home buyer guide. This isn't Google pay-per-click or Facebook. These aren't homes for sale. This is actually somebody inquiring about you. Maybe you're saying, I can give you a cash offer on your home, or maybe you're saying, I'll give you your home's value, right? These would be your offer type advertising that you can do too. You're not buying leads, you're advertising. So these are what I would consider under to be the check equity. Again, there's way more, but for the purposes of this video, these are the ones that I know a lot about that I can talk to you about. Now, under both, this is an interesting one here. So we have buyer letters. This is where you have a buyer. In our company, what we say is if you have a client that's fully underwritten, buyer agreement signed, and they've done a buyer strategy session with you, you should absolutely try to find them an off-market home and try to find a listing and get maybe three deals instead of one out of a buyer. Using your buyers to get listings is something that is incredibly powerful. So buyer letters should be done with check and sweat equity or just check equity. But for example, if you have to write 300 letters, they should all be handwritten. So if that means you're doing it at your off hours in the middle of the night, totally fine. Or if you're hiring a high schooler to do it and you're paying them a few bucks, then it's just check equity, which is why I put this under both. Now, the next thing I have on here is client events. This is under both because it is going to require you to also do something and be there and plan it, and you're going to have to spend some money. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but you definitely are going to have to spend something. So this is why this is under here as well too. Now, something that not a whole lot of people talk about is search engine optimization, or SEO. If you have a website that you're building out and trying to generate leads, this one is definitely something I would look into sooner than later, and I'll talk about where you would pair this in as well too. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is probably one of the most common things talked about in traditional brokerages is farming. I think farming is one of the last things you should consider doing if you're not currently generating leads. All right, so we've broken down sweat equity, check equity, and both. Let's talk about two different things. Okay, so let's talk about leverage. Now, you have high leverage and you have low leverage. Now, obviously, everything is, it's not yes or no, do you have leverage or not? It's how much leverage do you have? So let me give a few different examples. Something that is really low leverage is you door knocking. You can literally only knock on so many doors per day. A low leverage activity, the only way to get high leverage with door knocking is if you were to hire a team of other people to door knock for you, right? This is a low leverage activity because it's hard to do more of. However, on the opposite side of that, content is high leverage. So I'm going to film this video. It's going to take me an hour to write the script and to figure out the topic. It's going to take me an hour to film the video. It's going to take my team another 2 or 3 hours of work to edit, put it together, post it. And then it lives on our YouTube channel and wherever else it goes forever. And this video might get 20, 50 views in the first month, another 80 in the second month, and maybe a year later, it has several hundred views. If I was to sit here and have the same exact conversation that is going to be, I don't know, however long this video is going to be. Let's say it's a 20-minute video that you're making. If I was to have this 300 times, it would take me a lot of hours. This would take me 100 hours of pure conversation, to whereas for me, it took about 2 hours. Mind you, I have a marketing team, so maybe it was more like 5. So I am getting, like, I don't know what the math here is, but I am getting a huge increase on my time. This is high. This is what leverage is. This is the best way to do it. So if I was to do, so what is this, 20 times? So I'm getting 20x the output, if you will. The door knocking, if I was to try to 20x the amount of doors, I would literally have to hire 20 people. And that is probably just not going to happen if we're sitting here talking about lead generation, right? And I don't even know if that would be financially worth it. I'm sure you could make it work. There's a lot of door knocking teams. But anyway, this is the idea of high and low leverage. Okay, so let's go back up here and let's talk about these different things. We already broke it down into sweat, check, and both. We're going to break this down into your high and low leverage activities. All right, so I'm going to do 2 different things here. First, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight. Let's do this color here is going to be for low leverage. And over here, we're going to do high leverage. And we're going to use green for high leverage, right? There you go. You get the idea. So low leverage and high leverage activities. Let's go with low leverage first. Now, what you're going to notice is a lot of the sweat equity are going to be low leverage activities, right? You can only do so much of these things. So almost all of the things that are under sweat equity are low leverage. Door knocking is low leverage because you can only knock on so many doors. Cold calling is low leverage, way higher than door knocking, but it's low leverage because you can still only make so many phone calls per day. Your open houses, you can only be in one place at one time, and your SOI is you can only build relationships, not really on a one-to-one. I would say maybe this is maybe a little bit more in the middle. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make this a yellow for the middle. You'll get the point there. Your low leverage activities under paid are going to be that's about it. Nothing under paid is low leverage, which is part of the point on low leverage. Now, low leverage on things that are both is really just going to be none of it. So your low leverage stuff is the sweat equity stuff. So going through this, literally everything else on your content is extremely high leverage. Professional relationships is also high leverage, and then everything that is paid, it's high leverage in the sense that you literally don't have to do anything other than pay money to get eyeballs. Now, for buyer letters, this could be probably a mix of both. Client events, it could be very high leverage, especially if you're doing the larger the event, the more leverage it is. So I would actually put that as a green one here as well too. Now for SEO and farming, these are also incredibly high leverage activities. I'm actually going to I'm going to leave farming at green as well too. Let's throw in some yellow. And the reason for this is you have to be physically involved with your farm in order for it to work. I've never seen it not work with an agent not being physically involved. So this is your high leverage versus low leverage. But we started the video talking about how should this work for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So let's talk about beginners. So if you are a beginner to lead generation, here's my advice to you. I would highly recommend you starting with open houses because it is free, easy, and it's free and easy. And it's really, really good for really high quality leads. And this is something you could spend every Saturday and Sunday doing from 12 to 5, and you can make $100,000 plus just from doing this. I can say that because I personally did this. My first 100,000 came almost exclusively from open houses. Now, the next thing that you should do, in my opinion, is you should start your first very high leverage activity of content. I think there's two different ways that you can go. You can fake it, or what I think a new agent should do is I think you should show the story. I think you should share your story of you becoming a successful real estate agent. You show what you're actually doing. Show, don't tell, what it looks like to work with you, and show doing the work. So if you're going to the office to do a training to learn how to do open houses better, tell your consumers that. Put that on social media. I'm learning how to do better open houses so that I can get more money for my sellers. I'm learning how to do better open houses so that I can help buyers find the correct home. I am doing all of these different things. I believe the story of you making your first $100,000 or helping your first 20 family, whatever it is, that story is going to be way more powerful than you pretending to be an expert on day one. Because if you're a beginner, and this is to lead generation, but if you're not super experienced in the business, why pretend to be it on content when there's other people that are experts that are already making content? Don't necessarily recommend that at all. So beginners making content and doing open houses. I think the other thing that I would highly recommend doing is getting very used to the phones with cold calling. If you can. I tried cold calling and I personally did not enjoy it at all until I was later in my career. But this would be circle prospecting. I would not call expireds. I would not call for sale by owners. I wouldn't recommend doing any of that stuff. I would do circle prospecting around my open houses. So I would, anywhere I was doing the open house, I would call and say, hey, I'm doing an open house. I would invite the neighbors, give them a CMA. And then when I found buyers, I would call around that. And then the only thing that I would do, and let me give a huge pro tip here. I share this with all of my agents, is that if you are making less than $100,000, do not, oh my God, I just spelled not wrong. Do not spend money. Do not spend money at all if you're making less than $100,000. With the caveat that if you do have some money to spend, you might have a marketing budget, maybe you're doing some deals, I would highly encourage you to add buyer letters to your entire funnel here, because your buyer letters are going to help you win more buyers, right? Imagine if you said, for every client that I have, that 1 signs a buyer agreement, 2 has done a buyer strategy session, as we call it, and 3 is fully underwritten. You get the point? Then I will send, 200 buyer letters per month, every single month until we find you the house. This makes people, so this is going to help you increase your conversion rate, it's going to increase your listings, and it's going to increase your money, which is the whole reason we're doing this. So I'm a huge fan of this, and this could be up to, you could do this up to $300K easy if you wanted to, and just do this. But if you want to be more advanced and you want more leverage, right? So let's say we're intermediate and we want more leverage. So when we move into this is when you're going to start adding in stuff like this. So if you do like cold calling, right, and you're already doing it, you're circle prospect, and you're thinking, gosh, I want a little bit more than this. Your phone skills are good enough now where you could do expired, for sale by owner. You could even throw in your non-owner occupieds as well too. So you're having more conversations with more people who are more likely to actually do transactions. I think that's totally fine at this intermediate level. And again, this is free, which is good. Now, you might have to spend some money on, like, we use Mojo, and then you might have to buy some data. So yeah, sure, there might be some money in here, but like, I think we spend for our entire team like $600 a month. So if that's a lot of money to you, you shouldn't be spending money. But that's about all we do here. Now, the next thing I would say, and this is where most people go first, don't necessarily recommend it, is they'll go to the Zillows and the Realtor.coms and all of these different companies. And this is where you are paying large amounts of money in order to do a deal. Here's the formula. So if you're here, if you're watching this video, this is the part, zoom in. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this and you're not paying attention, this is the part where you pay attention. I have spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on these types of leads throughout my career, and you are no longer allowed to invest in any lead source without using this formula first. I just did this yesterday on a conversation. I won't say the name of the company, but I just used this yesterday and decided not to invest in one lead source. I decided to put the money in a different lead source. Here's the formula. Is we are looking for CAC, which is customer acquisition cost. Acquisition cost, aka cost per deal. What does it actually cost you in order to do a deal? Now, this is the very simplified version, but we do have to do this. So you take your CPL, your cost per lead, and you divide that by your conversion rate. So for example, this exact lead source was a $75 cost per lead. Not bad, wasn't terribly expensive. And the conversion rate was 1%. So when I did $75 divided by 0.001, 1%, that equaled $7,500 in order to do a deal. So you can ask yourself, does this make sense for me to invest in? And what I actually did instead was I invested in a lead source that is $25 cost per lead at a 0.5. So the leads are half the conversion rate. So the leads are twice as bad, if you will. However, the cost to do a deal now is $5,000. So which it's significantly cheaper than this other lead source. So I chose to go with lead source B instead of lead source A. And this saved me tons of money. So this is the formula that you will always forever put this in your notes, write this down, save this video, timestamp this. This is the formula you have to use if you're ever going to spend money on a source like this. So that is your paid ads. The next thing that I'm going to touch on is your Google pay-per-click. Well, ironically, I'll give you this source. So I'll say this. This was something, it was not Zillow or Realtor.com, but it's a source like this. Let's just say it's Realtor.com. RDC stands for Realtor.com. So Realtor.com, and this is Google pay-per-click. So I'm going to pay $5,000 in order to do a deal. Now, in my market, our average commission is $26,000. I'm going to pay my agent, let's say 12 of that, something like that. So there's going to be that much left over. So this is like a 3x ROI, and we get to do more deals. I'm okay with that, right? That's basically how this source works. And if I would have done this one, it would have been like a 1.5x ROI, and that doesn't quite make sense, right? So there's some real math right there. And you just have to do this. When you're spending money on leads, you are now an investor. You're investing money into these leads. You really need to think of it that way. Now, I mentioned buyer letters, and I mentioned that. The next thing that I would highly recommend you add in here are client events. Now remember, this is for your intermediate. You are already doing deals. You're already making money. Ideally, you're making more than $100,000 a year. This alone is going to take you in probably 3x your income. And this is way more than a 3x ROI. If you're sitting here and you're telling me I'm willing to invest 3x ROI on this, this is going to be like a 300x ROI, where you're going to spend $3,000 and you're going to make $300,000 from one event. Absolutely possible. So, for example, this is where you're going to take your repeat and referral business. And let's say you do something, maybe you rent out a park, you rent something out, and you have 200 people that you can invite. Well, you're going to invite you're going to invite your past clients, and this is where most people screw up, is they only invite past clients. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, Christian, I don't have enough past clients to do a past client event. Well, stop calling it a past client event and call it a client event. Oh my gosh, right? You're going to call this a client event moving forward. Or you can AKA money printing event. That's what you can call it, is a money printing event. So if you have 200 spots that you can fill, you can invite your past clients. And if you can say like, okay, you only have 20 past clients, well, let's say they all have a plus one, so you have 40 people maybe. So now you can invite your current clients. Right? Now, you might be able to invite 100 people, and then maybe they have, God forbid, they have plus ones. Let's say you can only invite 50, and then they have plus ones, we're at 100. Well, already we're at 140, right? So we're at 140 so far. But here's the magic. Bring a friend. All you need to do is, of these 140 people, you need 30 people to bring a friend with a plus one. Is 60. So you make some crazy incentive for people to bring a friend. You make it really, really worth it. You say, hey, maybe you guys both get a discount on the next deal you do. If you don't love that idea, you say, hey, bring your friend because somebody's going to win a TV. Maybe you give away a $5,000, $2,000 TV, whatever. Again, this is how you can say, if you just imagine if you just got 60 referral leads into your business tomorrow and you spent $3,000, $1,000 on the event and then $2,000 on a TV to give away, whatever, is only the people who bring a friend are automatically enrolled in this thing, whatever it is. This would be a phenomenal way to do it. Most agents will only focus on the past clients. They totally miss out on their current clients. Now, how do we get a $300,000 from this? Well, in our market, I mean, shoot, it's 10 deals, right? If $26,000 commission times 10, that's 260. So we would need 11 deals, right? That's not super hard in our market. If you have a lower price point, I'm sorry, I get it. You're just going to have to do more deals from it, right? And I promise your conversion rates are higher if you're in a lower price point market. That's just how it works. So if you're saying, how do I generate $300,000 from this event? You are going to, your past clients are going to do more deals. You are B, going to convert current leads, your current clients, way more. And then C, you're going to get tons of super high quality new leads. And these are referrals. And all of this is going to be your money printing machine. And this is where you're going to be happy about your business. And this is in your intermediate level. So before you just go and drop 10 grand a month, and I'm speaking partially to myself here, before you just go drop $15,000 a month on this, or $500 a month, or $5,000, like whatever level you're at, before you just go dump money, especially into this stuff, do this first. And if you don't like cold calling, then that's fine, don't do it. But you could just add down here, once you've got a few $1,000s set aside, on this beginner level, you just throw in the event. And you're not spending any money. You literally only spend money on the buyer letter and this. And this gets people to $1 million in actual income left, right, and center. And don't do anything else. But if that's not you and you want to be more advanced, that is what I'm here doing. So I think absolutely. So if you're following along so far, let's do a recap. We have talked about all kinds of different lead generation strategies. We talked about high leverage and low leverage. Now, you should be doing your whatever. You don't have to do open houses. I'm not saying you have to go do that, but you should be doing your version of your just basic pillar of business. I absolutely am adamant that you should be making content about showing, don't telling what it looks like to do to work with you. I'm not saying you have to cold call by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to have some sort of lead gen. Highly recommend adding content and just showing literally what you're doing every day. If you're asking, Christian, I don't know what to post today, post whatever you're actually doing for your clients. That's what I would do. Now, do not spend money unless you're making $100,000, but you can do buyer letters. You can do buyer letters only for the clients that have done a buyer agreement, you've done a strategy session or buyer's consult, and they're fully underwritten. This is going to help you convert more leads. It's going to help you get more listings and obviously make more money. Now, when you get to the intermediate level, this is where you kind of level up whatever you're already doing, is how I would explain this. If you have an itch to spend money and you want something high leverage, I would I demand that you use this formula in order to not light money on fire. I have lit money on fire plenty of times in my career, and every single time I did, it was because I refused to do math before I did the investment. And this is the formula. You do your cost per lead divided by your conversion rate is going to tell you what it actually costs to do a deal. And then you make a math decision, not an emotional decision. Now, here's where you should absolutely be adding on client events to your whole deal. Now, remember, it's not a past client event. This is a money printing machine where you're going to be inviting all of your past clients, your current clients, and you're going to incentivize everybody to bring a friend. This last one is absolutely the cheat code here. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. Now let's go ahead and we're going to talk about, I'm going to put this in red because this is for advanced. And this is maybe something for you to look forward to in the future, or if you feel like you're cranking, you're making multiple six figures a year, and you wanted to know what I had to say on advanced, here's a few things. I think this is where you bring in your professional, I'm just going to say pro relationships. These are long-term. This is going to take you years to earn, and then you will likely keep those relationships forever. You are likely going to spend money to earn and maintain those relationships. Maybe you do an event just for your professional relationships. Maybe you take them to dinner. Maybe you send them some nice gift. I don't know. That is one advanced thing you can do here as well too. Now, the next thing I want to mention here is your offer. So let's say you want to have something that's more high leverage for listings. Here is what I highly recommend. I'm going to get out of red. So you're already making content. You should be. And in part of this content, you're going to be doing monthly market updates. Now, I currently don't do this, but the second that I make a full-blown listing attraction campaign, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to, 1, make content for market updates. I'm going to, 2, run a YouTube ad for the location. And I say city. I already have the city picked out. I know exactly what I'm doing. The third thing that I would do is I would do a direct mail to a demo graphic farm. For example, I would send to people that have been in the home 35 plus years, that are 65 years old. This would be like 20 years. Let's say 20 plus years in the home. Let's say 300K or less mortgage, 2+ stories. And in non senior. Obviously, if it's 2 stories, it probably will be. So I would take this whole list and I would mail to downsize. Pretty much everybody that fits this demographic is going to be most likely to downsize, so that my mail is not some generic nonsense. It is very, very close to the person I'm actually sending this to. This person's also seeing my YouTube ad market updates here, and they're getting my direct mail pieces as well too. Frankly speaking, on it, since we're talking about this, I would also, so what am I doing here? 2, 3, so this would be 4. I would, in this my particular city that I have this in mind, I would do like every bench / bus stop, and I would do the what is it? The grocery stores. I think I just spelled that wrong. You get the point. The branding for all of this would be everywhere in the city, to where you really would not be able to miss it. And then when you actually get a listing, you would do your mega open houses. And I would spend like 100x signs per open house. And this whole campaign here, I'd only do this for the one city, right? This would be like a very real campaign. So this is where your offer, if I wanted to get more listings, I would run paid ads on Instagram, Facebook specifically for this market, YouTube ads in the location of the city, and I would be saying, hey, this is your Mission Viejo housing market update. I would send direct mail pieces to a demographic farm that fit downsizers or whatever fit that particular city. I would do every park bench, and the messaging would be very similar there as well too. And then I would put out a ton of open houses. And this is how you then could, if you wanted to get in, this could lead into farm. Is kind of like farming at scale, if you will. Now, the only other thing that I'd recommend doing is, if you're making content, you might also want to do SEO. Now, SEO is a very long game, but it has a huge ROI over a long period of time. So if you're trying to make money this year, SEO is absolutely not going to make you money this year. If you're looking to make money 3 years from now, SEO is probably not a bad idea to do. We've been doing it for about 2 years, and we have made maybe 1 sale in it, and we still are at a loss for this. But at the end of the day, these are the things that I would recommend. So for you in your real estate business, if you are in the beginning stages, start your content, find your lead generation pillar, and convert your leads at a higher level. If you're in that intermediate space, I urge you to start doing client events. If you're on, like for example, the agents that are on our team, they should be doing their own individual client events that don't need to be big. They don't need to be a bunch of money. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot of heartache and brain damage to put together. It just needs to be done. And I highly encourage you leveraging the buyers that you do have with buyer letters and maybe circle prospecting if you're not afraid to make those phone calls. The only other thing that I did not put on here, this is a bonus for you, is an email newsletter campaign. You do not email your database enough. I highly recommend you take our playbook and you email your database once a week, every single week. So that's 52 weeks in the year, and 12 of those are going to be the monthly market updates. So that leaves you with 40 additional topics. That means you're going to touch them with 40 valuable pieces of content every single year to everybody in your database. We do this with our leads. We have 13,000 people on our consumer-facing email, and we get 45% open rates and 2.5 to 3% click rates every single week. And we add people to this, and it is the most common thing that we get complimented on by consumers that say thank you for sending the information because they appreciate it. So if you want to know my absolute favorite, aside from the newsletter that I just talked about as a bonus here, it is an evergreen YouTube channel. An evergreen YouTube channel is what you can use to make content, maybe 2 videos every single week, to where in the next year or 2, you can add hundreds of thousands of dollars to your GCI, just like we have. We have a channel, we just hit 1,000 subscribers, and we have generated over $300,000 in just the first 2 years of this channel, and it is growing faster than anything else that we're doing that's not paid ads. So if you want to learn how to do that, this next video breaks down the entire process that we have followed in order to get to 1,000 subscribers and 300,000 GCI. So if you like this video, like this one, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.